An audience member of mine made a series of statements that I think we need to take very careful look at because I think a lot of people are just catching on to Xbox's business. He says, and he writes, he says, you can clearly see the transitioning of Xbox from a platform first to a publisher first and platform second. Then he said the core money making business of Xbox does not rely mostly on fees from other publishers like how Steam and PlayStation do, but on how well your published games sell, like Ubisoft or EA. Now, here's the really interesting thing PlayStation is just recently in Xbox's purview in the last year or 2 years. The PlayStation part of Xbox's business is new, it's not an old thing. However, Xbox making its moves to broaden where it publishes its games is old and has been old as a result of how the Xbox One sales did back in the day. I see a lot of people saying, Xbox is going full third party, has finally now become full third party and blah, blah, blah. And therefore their consoles are not selling, which is also an error that you made here. You said they had to put their games day and date on PlayStation and PC because their consoles were not selling anymore. Then you said doing so will make people buy them even less. So you're claiming that their move outside of their console is because, it's going to result in people not buying their consoles as much. But the reality is their consoles have not been selling very well, which is weird because you also then went ahead and said that. You said you can see how the Xbox One and the Series X at the beginning of their generation were outsold by PlayStation 2-1, and last year was almost 5-1. So what then is the categorization that you're making? Because if we actually go back, and I took like an AI model to basically go ahead and pull some data. I went to Statista, these guys are trying to sell me an account, and I'm like, guys, who's going to pay for this for data that is probably somewhere? Goodness. So I went to an AI model, DeepSeek, and I said, hey, give me what you know in terms of the sales number of units of Xbox One consoles by year. Now, these are estimates, right? At the end of the day, and then I decided that whatever the numbers will give me, I want to see where the sources are from. So I got the sources and everything. When we look at the number of Xbox One consoles, even by 2015, right? If we go with this DeepSeek model and look at what's going on, you'll realize that the console sales were bad, especially when you compare them with PlayStation 4. The delta was staggering at the time early on in what this model is showing. And so when you even stop around like 2015, you'll see that it was basically already a lost cause. And so Xbox making the pivot at the time and moving its games to PC Day 1, which kicked off in 2016, was the natural progression. In fact, this AI model is even aware and said since about 2018, Xbox had basically made its pivot to focusing more. Let me see. There it is. It says Microsoft number 4 in one of its points. Microsoft shift to Game Pass and next gen. It said by 2018, Microsoft pivoted to Xbox Game Pass and cloud gaming, reducing their focus on Xbox One hardware. Sony kept supporting and the PS4 major exclusives well into the PS5's life cycle. But here's the thing too with Xbox is because they're not following depending on third-party games according to what you're saying, it doesn't mean that they don't have a subscription service that now makes them dependent on their hardware, which would be Game Pass. That's the piece of the puzzle that you're not seeing. A lot of folk, PlayStation and Xbox in general, aren't really and have not been paying attention to Xbox's business model all these years. The moment they came out with a $599 console and PlayStation came out with a $299 or $500 console or whatever it is, the Xbox One with the Kinect and all that, and PlayStation came out with a $299 console, that's exactly when they lost the console war. Right there at the start and the launch, when they came out with the poor pricing and then all the other things involved, because they could have rebounded from TV. But to rebound from TV and a higher price point, it just was not something that was bound to happen. And then they handed that company over like that to Phil Spencer. So what was he supposed to do? He made, I think, the appropriate shift. Because even in the Xbox Series generation, there was one time they had a really significant surge in hardware sales, But even till then, none of that has actually, in a sense, materialized to them selling more consoles. So what have they decided to do? They've decided that their console is going to be a piece of the entire puzzle. Something that PlayStation actually sees as an advantage for them. Because again, y'all are looking at it as, oh, it has to only be the console for the company to actually have an advantage of some sort. When in reality, the advantage is in the fact that they are no longer bound to that console. So thereby, if they were to fail, a lot more different fail points would actually have to take place for Xbox as a unit to disappear. Meaning they now have a bigger and a much more fortified anchor. If the PlayStation console, anything were to happen to it, their business is done. Does that make sense? If PlayStation's console business has a significant negative effect, it's over. Because they hinge their entire approach on their console and their business. Xbox did so, but then when the console business started to see some negative impacts, their business would have been out of there. So they broadened and they pivoted. And if PlayStation starts to see any negative impact on its consoles, it's going to do the exact same thing. That's why it has its toes into similar places that Xbox actually has its hand in. So your statement where you said you have friends that were mostly pro Xbox until last gen, but they bought a PS5 recently instead of a Series X since they'll be able to play Xbox games in there anyways. From one side, you earn more on first-party games, but less on third-party fees. Xbox could not be bothered about this one side and another because you're not looking at the business from a broad perspective that they have a PC side as well. Many PlayStation players, what I've learned about the way you actually argue about the Xbox businesses, you have a lot of fail points that you are not paying attention to. It always throws you for a loop every single time. You act like the only place that Xbox can make money from third-party games is on the console. Why do you always make that mistake? Why do you always make that mistake? And even still, your arguments don't make any sense saying that, they can only focus on that because they're still supporting the PC store and still supporting their consoles because they make money on their consoles via Game Pass. So what you're seeing here is an Xbox that has transcended the traditional console model. Basically, and I'm going to go ahead and sketch this out for y'all because it seems like for some reason, everybody just is misplacing this stuff. Like it's basically getting lost in translation, okay? So let's bring the paper and the pencil because, man, again, I got to go. Give me an expo marker, man. Let's roll. So Xbox is like this, structure. Or let's just call it like this, they have this structure. And for the most part, in the center of that structure, they had a centerpiece, which was their console, which they stood on. That was the leg that they had to stand on, right? And it started to get frail. So they went ahead and they added PC, which is a very, very strong structure, by the way. Don't get me wrong. It's more like multi-pronged approach, right? So they have a PC store, then they have Steam, right? Then they went ahead and added another structure called Game Pass. And so the structure now starts to stand even more. And then now they're added, let me put this one in blue for y'all so that you guys can see that color, that PlayStation blue, right? Then now they have the one in blue, which is PlayStation. Oh, did I tell you that they have one that's also in red? Let's just color code Xbox's business, right? They have another one that's in red, which would be Nintendo, right? And so now their business has now transcended the regular. And I haven't even added mobile, which would be another one. Let's do mobile as yellow. Let's do mobile as yellow. So now this structure that Xbox has now has not just a leg to stand on, but multiple legs to stand on. But every single person that's making the arguments from the console side, they're always in one focus and continue to look at this middle beginning structure and say, well, their consoles aren't selling, so that's why they're having that. And they make all their conclusions from here, and that's why they're almost always faulty conclusions. Every single time. Because the Nintendo one's been there for a while. This is the Nintendo one, right? This is the Xbox PC app one, XPC. This is the Steam one, right? Oh, keep in mind, they got Battle.net too, which we're not talking about. We're just going to leave that one as somewhere, Then this is the PlayStation one. This is the one that's actually the newer one. This is the Nintendo. So this is the, what was this yellow one? I already forgot. No, sorry, the mobile one. Right? This is the mobile one, and I haven't added cloud. Let's not even go there. What was this one? I forgot. Dude, I added all these models. I already forgot. That's all the possible approaches that Xbox can make money by. So if your whole analysis is that they're leaving the console market because they are not focusing more as a publisher, blah, 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 and they're not going to make money via third party and all this stuff, when Sarah Bond has said that they now have over 1,000 partners because they've now built a very attractive ecosystem where gamers can now access games in different possibilities. Developers are looking and saying, why don't we get our games in here so that people can also partake of this? 1,000 new partners. And you're saying they're not going to make a lot of money from third-party sales because of console when they have many ways to help deploy games. Oh, this is the console one, sorry. Deploy games for their partners and for the developers. Man, this is why every PlayStation fanboy is still living in a fantasy. This is why when PlayStation's document leaked and they said Microsoft can supply multi-game subscription. Oh, that was Game Pass. I called it console, but I call it what you want. 50% console games, 50% PC, 60%, while having spoken about how Microsoft is building a mobile gaming store to compete with Apple and Google. Their conclusion was simply, Sony's pillars are already dated and behind the competition. So I can listen to y'all talk all day, right? And just smile and make a 9-minute video. And what that 9-minute video is going to do is going to kick the legs off your argument, and it comes crashing down. Because PlayStation is on my debate team. They're debating you for me. Because this is the reality that we all see here. And it's a reality that I can't emphasize how much this reality is so important in the conversation that missing it is purposefully either keeping you in the dark, or you go out there and you go make a very, critical error in how you form your argument and then miss the mark in general. Thanks for watching the video. Talk to me in the comment section. Peace out.